It is 12:52 a.m. and I would say I'm not tired like the great Scott Van Pelt, but I am very tired. It's the start of a 2-game road trip series. Unfortunately, this one did not go Kentucky's way, a 70-66 loss at Clemson to give Mark Pope his first loss as the head coach of the University of Kentucky. It was a very hostile environment, I'll be honest. The crowd didn't really impress me, didn't move me too much to start with. And then as the momentum of the game started kind of picking up, you know, good credit for a football school. They definitely did their job, started learning basketball as the game was going on. So good for them, but just not a very impressive performance for the Cats. Really just got away from everything that it did well. The physicality, you talked to the players earlier in the week, or on Monday actually, they said that they were prepared for a physical matchup. Didn't appear that they were ready for a physical matchup. They lost the rebounding battle in the first half by 10, absolutely obliterated on the offensive glass, and just really, you know, they chipped away at it, but never really able to totally overcome it. Still had a chance to win at the very end, but it was just too much to overcome, just not Kentucky's day. And for the first time, I think opposing teams now have a blueprint to beat the University of Kentucky, which is a pretty scary thought if you ask me, Stephen.
Yeah, hold Kentucky to, what'd you say it was, 25.9% from three on...
Kentucky finished shooting 38.1% from the field and 25.9% from three, while also, again, only 61.1% from the free throw line.
Yeah,
I think
that's not good.
This is starting to become an unfortunate trend where guys are just not consistently making shots at the free throw line the way they desperately need to for moving forward.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the three-point shooting. I think coming into this game, Clemson was, 192nd in three-point defense?
I think it was like 157 in terms of defensive efficiency from the three-point line, but not great.
No, and, you know, some of those shots were open. They just didn't go in. I think Otega, you want him taking every single one of those there at the end of the game. He had 3 good looks, and they just didn't fall, and it's kind of a trend of the last few games where the three-point shot hasn't really been there. I think, was it 2 games ago, maybe against Western, where they didn't hit 10 threes for the first time, and then that happened again, and now it's happened again.
I believe it was 8 makes, 7 makes, and then now 7 makes again, and was going to be 6 makes before the last kind of prayer from Lamont Butler that fell in, but undoubtedly regressing from 3.
And Kobe Brea is maybe the best three-point shooter in the country. He did hit 1 today. But did he only take 2 from beyond the arc?
Yeah, 1 for 2 from 3, only played 17 minutes. There's a stretch from the 9-minute and 30-second-ish mark in the second half all the way down to basically the final 28-ish seconds in the game. 9 full minutes essentially without the best shooter in college basketball when your team's not making shots, desperate for a make.
So what do you do? How do you get him open? That's the question I kept asking people all day. Like, you have this weapon like that is just deadly from behind the three-point line, but it's kind of like, what's the point of having it? It's like having a bunch of money in a currency that doesn't exist anymore. You can't spend it. You just have a bunch of it.
Being really good at speaking Latin.
Yeah. So what do you do? We got to figure out how to get Kobe Brea more looks. He got 4, I think, in the Duke game. Now 2 tonight. So that's 6 against the upper level of competition.
It was weird, and Mark Pope had a quote where he said that, you know, obviously the physicality was an issue. That was something that really was the story of the game. That was what Kentucky just really did not respond well to. Nobody did. Front court, back court, just really did not across the board. Credit to Clemson. They really just kind of, you know, fought from the opening tip to the final buzzer and won that battle. They out-hustled Kentucky and just flat out won in that regard, and that was a little deflating, knowing that was going to be the game plan coming in, knowing that's what they did so well and not being able to respond in that way. But Pope had a quote where he basically said, we got sped up to the point where it slowed us down, where the players stopped relying on each other's trust and saying, hey, for this system to work, this read and react system, we have to be on the same page. You have to trust me just as much as I trust you. And there was none of that. There was no trust, and that's how you get to the point of 11 assists on 24 makes, and I think in the first half, only 3 assists on 10 makes. Just the ball stuck. The ball movement, the off-ball movement was just not what it needed to be. And I think that was probably the most disappointed Pope was, and the entire game was just not getting the system down, and you just saw the ball stick and kind of turn into Pope said that it got pretty ISO heavy, and Otega trying to do things his own way, Lamont trying to do things his own way, Andrew Carr, both Amari Williams, just kind of trying to take the game over individually instead of letting steps 2 through 4 through 5 through 6 happen instead of just focusing on step 1. It just really it felt like we were watching a John Calipari coach team. It was weird. It just really felt like this is a game that we would have watched from last year's group. Honestly, we were sitting in a bar having dinner before this game started, and we were watching Arkansas on TV. Not that we were seeking it out. Arkansas fans would know we're not obsessed. It was just on the TV. It was just on the TV in front of us, and we were joking about what is this offense. It just like what are we watching, and it's just very weird that exact same style of play is what we saw when that's
the same
total polar opposite of what this team's identity is. Just really disappointing in that regard that they just kind of got totally away from what makes them potentially great and the number 4 team in college basketball.
I thought that if Clemson wanted to go up and down the floor with Kentucky, I kind of thought it played into Kentucky's advantage, but they picked Kentucky up, 94 feet from the basket a lot of times, and I guess it rattled, especially when Lamont Butler had to go out with foul trouble. And I think here's what I liked from Pope in the press conference. One of the things that I was like nodding along with, because this is something Calipari did that just drove me crazy. A guy gets 2 fouls, he takes him out of the game. And what Pope said something like, as a coach, you want to make sure you don't foul out your own player. And he felt like he kind of did that. Kentucky took a 28-23 lead. The place was not quiet because there was a lot of go big blue chants. And you sort of felt, okay, here's this momentum. I think it was a 9-0 Kentucky run. He decides to go small, and he said he regretted doing this in the postgame. He said he regretted going into a small lineup, trying to think he can maybe save Andrew a few minutes, not try to pick up a third foul. And I think it turned into a 10-0 Clemson run at that point.
A 9-0 run flipped for Kentucky, flipped into a 10-0 run for Clemson. It just really... deflating, just really.
I really thought in that moment, I thought we're going to go home with a win.
I did too.
I mean, I know they were only up 5, and it was the first half, but I thought, okay, here you go. Now we're clicking. Like, let's keep this momentum going. Shots, I think maybe Jackson hit a 3. I can't really remember the sequence how we got to that point, but I did think like, all right, there we go. Shots are going to start falling, and they're going to start falling eventually. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be like super down. I hate losing. I hate it, and we haven't felt this since Oakland. It's been a while. If they'd have won today, this would have been the best start since the 38-1 team. I really was looking forward to coming here on this.
You told us that stat, Stephen, and I was so excited. I've been writing it in my posts. I've been kind of using it as our little kind of preview for this week, where it would have tied it for the 38-1 team with a win today, and it's sad that we didn't get to live out that stat.
Yeah, there was something about this game that I was just. I woke up this morning, going to past Shelbyville to pick you up, and on the way there, I was just like, man, something just doesn't feel right. And I think it's just the first road environment that it just had me a little anxious. And, I thought that if this was the nightmare scenario. And again, I'm not trying, that's what I was trying to get at, that I'm not trying to be too down. Kentucky's not going to shoot like this poorly. I would hope not for many games. Because I get this, some of it you got to credit Clemson. They played physical. They really, Kobe Brea didn't get more than 2 shots because they weren't letting Kobe Brea get more than 2 shots.
Great defensive game plan. It really was.
But Kentucky still had open looks that just didn't go in. Aside from a couple forced threes, but just a couple. They shot, 27? I would like to watch the game again. I don't really want to watch the game but I probably will.
Because you're a sicko.
Yeah,
you're
a psychopath.
You're a sick man.
So I would say maybe 20 of those were probably legitimate looks from guys that, even when Andrew Carr is wide open, there were a couple even in the second half or something. I was like, Andrew, that's probably a good look. Go ahead and pull. But I'm glad that they don't shy away from it. I know that, they'll come back against Gonzaga. They'll shoot another maybe 33s. Maybe they'll drop. Tell me why I shouldn't be too down, because I was getting kind of down. I felt myself getting negative. I put on KS Board earlier today. I said, I'm done. I'm trying this new positivity thing. I'm going to try to speak some stuff into existence.
And that lasted 4 hours.
As soon as
really
they got down,
strong, good hours.
Got down by 6 in the second half, and I was like, "That's it, game's over, season's
Fire
over.
Mark
We're
Pope.
gonna finish
He
it."
stinks. We shouldn't run the Hall of Famer out. We're doomed.
Yeah.
We were always doomed. Mark Pope is washed. We want to no.
I didn't go that far, but I did sort of start thinking, okay, when you play in a league like this, the SEC is this year. Kentucky, unbelievably, is the only team in the SEC to lose tonight in the ACC SEC Challenge.
9-1, man.
So you're going to play teams that are going to play this style. Like you said, there's a blueprint, and these SEC teams kind of fit this mold. Would you agree? So
that's my concern.
So, okay, tell me why I shouldn't be too concerned about that.
Because they, as Pope said, they had really solid resolve where they ended up breaking even on the rebounding numbers, where in the first half it just felt so overwhelming with the way they were getting just destroyed on the glass and just fundamentally off with boxing out and just, you know, bad place, bad time. Just it felt like nobody was where they needed to be, and just out hustled, the physicality wasn't there. Out hustled to loose balls. It was just a really weird start. And to their credit, they responded and broke even essentially. Clemson finishes with 15 offensive rebounds, 29 defensively, and 44 total. Kentucky finishes with 44 total, 15 on the offensive glass,
wow,
and 29. So broke even completely. It's you want to see that type of a resolve. They did have a good game plan. Then at the end of the day, just didn't make the shots necessary to kind of close the gap. They did a really good job of closing the gap, but not overcoming to pull off the win. That was just a really frustrating finish. Like you said, the opportunities were there. Otega Oweh had 2 wide open threes that you want him to take.
Absolutely.
He's not a shooter, but he is a shot maker. And if you're going to have a guy wide open with nobody within 15 feet of him with a chance to make it a 1-point game or whatever, like that's a good shot. You can't take anything away from that. It's just one of those kind of it just didn't feel like Kentucky's night. The Clemson fan base really rallied around this team very well, and it was weird because it felt like Kentucky threw the first blow, and Lamont Butler had a really nice and one. Jackson Robinson came out firing, drilled his first 3, and it just looked like they had this edge to them, where it was like, man, they are so unfazed in this environment.
I thought so too.
They really came out and really had a good defensive game plan, got out to a 7-2 lead, and it just looked really, really strong early. And then Clemson threw that punch back, and then it just kind of kept throwing haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, and it kind of felt like Kentucky, for the first time this season, took a step back, got back on its heels, and said, ooh, I don't know how to respond to this. We saw them do it against Duke, and then for them to not be able to do it against that, I think that is, they responded nicely in the second half, just in terms of big picture, second half adjustments with rebounding and things like that. But just the resolve and just mentality and approach with physicality, I just didn't think it was there the way this team needs to be in a really, really physical, long, athletic conference. The SEC is the best it's ever been. Earlier in the day, the bracketology had 12 teams in the league out of 16 making the big dance. Like, this is going to be an absolute cutthroat juggernaut of a conference where you can see this team stack up losses the way they lost tonight against Mississippi State and Georgia, and teams that you're not expecting, not just the Tennessees and the teams up top, but some of those tough, gritty teams that have been just kind of problematic for Kentucky in the past, and just all teams in the past. You could see Kentucky stacking up losses if that's the case. I really did not think Andrew Carr played very well, and it was pretty disappointing coming from the ACC. This is his style of play. This is what he is known for. His last 2 games, he absolutely balled out against Clemson, playing for Wake Forest. So I kind of thought he would be the catalyst for a lot of what Kentucky did tonight, the way he did against Duke. I mean, it was a very similar situation where when Kentucky needed a big bucket and needed a response against Duke, he was the guy to give it. tonight he kind of shied away from that moment, really passed up on some big shots, and when the time did come for him to take them, he missed them or turned the ball over or came up with ugly fouls. Really, really disappointed with his effort tonight, and I thought Kirk Risa just really didn't give Kentucky what it needed, found himself on the floor more often than not, kind of tried to give that energy in terms of getting some flops and some charges and trying to be the igniter in that way. But sometimes the simplest thing is, hey, just make an open shot, dude. Like, we just need you to be the guy. If Lamont Butler is going to be dealing with foul trouble or dealing with an ankle injury, we just got to have you do what you're really, really good at. Be the playmaker and facilitator with creativity, but don't turn the ball over. Don't miss wide open threes. It's just it was just one of those nights where you needed two of those, both of those fifth-year seniors to step up, and neither of them did. And I thought that was a really big issue for Kentucky to pull off the win down here.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the plus minuses here, and it's, I don't think we see that Kirk Risa again. I think he might have just played his worst game.
I hope so.
I just don't.
21 minutes. I mean, he was a team low minus 21. I mean, that's pretty deflating.
Missed the front end of the bonus. Yeah, I mean, I think he's much better than that. I think we saw a lot of guys play. Maybe I wouldn't say not everybody played their worst game, but I think we saw a lot. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to. It's so early, and I know maybe by the time we get to February, this game's so far in the rear view. It's big that they beat Duke. I mean, that win is massive now because it was already big, but now I think it's even bigger because there was a possibility because Gonzaga is not going to be any easier.
They are a tougher, more athletic, move the ball better, more veteran-laden team. Clemson team. They're a bigger, better, more physical version of Clemson.
Yeah.
So
you could have gone into that Louisville game with
It's very it'd be very easy to, if you go win that game out in Seattle, this game disappears.
Means nothing.
Goes into the video you're watching right now, will never come back into your brain ever again, which would be a great thing.
Yes.
But if you lose that one, then you start going, okay, Mark Pope got his first statement win against Duke. It was a really emotional game. A lot going into that one that they just kind of willed themselves to victory there. But then you kind of go back to the drawing board and say, okay, they beat up on a bunch of cupcakes. First time where the competition's pretty comparable, lose this one, things get ugly out in Seattle, then you kind of get back to square one and go, well, what is this team's identity? Are they going to get back to, their shooting ways and shooting with efficiency?
They got to.
It opened the door.
Let's measure
doubt.
this. That's 10 foot, right? That's still 10 foot.
Yeah.
I don't care how good the defense is. I don't care. This team's better shooting than this. And this is not, I'm sticking with this positivity, all right?
I like it.
Look, here's my problem as a Kentucky fan right now. We just have not been able to enjoy prosperity. The football team goes and beats Ole Miss, and you're like, we're back, baby. We're receiving votes. All we got to do is beat Vanderbilt, and we're in the top 25. And what happens, Jack? What about last year? Kentucky beats the hell out of Miami, and then the next day they lose to the next game they lose to UNC Wilmington. Can we just have a few in a row that just we can get, because I need that. I need it. But I'm staying positive. This team, they're not going to play like this.
It's a good basketball team. It's a very good basketball team, but it's a flawed basketball team. And unfortunately, Clemson kind of just showed everybody else that maybe didn't know how to slow down Kentucky, a team that is just coming off a performance where 7 players finishing double figures. It's a pretty overwhelming thing to deal with this team. They kind of gave the blueprint of, hey, if you want a chance to beat this Kentucky team, here's the absolute way to do it. Disappointing effort down here. Really just have to give credit to Clemson. A really, really solid performance. Hey, football school getting a chance to storm
my first court
storm the court. Good for them.
How many have you seen?
3, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
We're still relevant. At least we know that.
We're everybody's Super Bowl. They even got a little kind of Coach Cal quit type of deal with Mark Pope at the end of the game. That was something that didn't really go over well with fans. Fans did not want to hear the same jargon, the Coach Cal jargon. So
we are everybody's Super Bowl. There are people. I talked to those students. They were here at 3 o'clock in the cold.
The quote was, "We're Kentucky. We're everybody's Super Bowl. That's why you come here. It's an honor, but it requires us to be great. We weren't quite great enough tonight."
Kentucky played terrible, and yet they could have easily won this game.
Yeah.
Is that something I can take? What's the last positive thing? That
Somebody
you
would
can
say
give me?
that you either win or you learn.
Okay. Oh, who said that? I like that.
And we learned a little bit about this team tonight. It's very, very late. It's now 1:12. It sucks. It really sucks to just kind of have to take a step back and come down from cloud nine and just get a dose of reality. This is still a very, very good basketball team. No big picture takes. No, oh my God, the sky is falling. We got to fire Mark Pope and go get Dan Hurley, who also stinks now. Like none of that. Vibes are still very, very good around the program. One slip up doesn't mean that
Party had to end sometime.
But it's a good learning opportunity for this Kentucky team that desperately needed one. Hopefully they go out to Seattle and use what they learned tonight and do it against a bigger, better version of what we just saw against Clemson and pull out a very, very important victory over the Gonzaga Bulldogs out in Seattle. Any last-second takeaways? Environment, Little John Arena. I didn't see Little John. I was kind of waiting for like a, what? Okay.
I assumed he hung out here a lot. No,
it was whatever.
The court storming was interesting. I kind of expected it to be a little bit more rowdy than that. You hear stories, and I was like, I'm going to be on the floor for it because I just, when they had a 6-point lead with a few minutes left, I knew it was coming, so I got down here and I don't know. People talk about how dangerous they are. I guess I could see that, but I didn't feel like
it's like Dwight Schrute in The Office whenever the stampede happens when they're selling the
sabers,
the saber little diamond pyramid things.
There was some pushing for no reason.
And he's like, wait, not everybody all at once. That's what the court storming looked like tonight here at Little John Coliseum. It was fine. It was an upsetting night. Hopefully they respond well out in Seattle. The KSR gang will be there. They'll be live on the scene from out there, hopefully celebrating a big win for the Cats. They will need it to make up for what we saw tonight at Little John Coliseum. For Jack, for Stephen Peak, we'll see you next time.